Welcome to Haberman and MIDDLEKAUFF. I'm Guy, and that's John. And this is our YouTube channel and our podcast. If you're watching the YouTube channel, you can take us to go. I mean, you can do that with YouTube, too. It's all on your phone. But if you want to listen to it, it's a podcast down in the description below. Or if you're listening and you want to watch and see what we look like, you can check out the YouTube link, which is in the podcast description. Should we give our Tito's toast to another John?
You fire away.
A Tito's toast, John, to our good buddy. For those of you not maybe in the Bay Area market, or maybe you're not a Niner fan who follows Niner coverage, our friend, we go way back, very smart guy.
I saw a lot of Raider games back in the day as well.
A lot of Raider games. Just an old school grinder with a new school, just smart brain mentality. Our buddy, John Dickinson. I raise a Tito's toast to JD, who announced on X on Monday that he was leaving his radio job at one radio station, and he has yet to announce his future destination. But from what I understand, news of that is coming shortly. So to JD for betting on himself and for making himself in demand, whatever that means, I don't know, John. But a
had to do another radio station, correct?
John Dickinson.
KMCI?
Camel Country 108.
Keep an eye on a man on the move. Man on the move.
Yep. So a Tito's, and we know one thing about our boy JD, John Dickinson. John Dickinson. He loves himself a Tito's. Tito's handmade
Tito's and soda. No calories.
Tito's and soda in Walnut Creek rooftop bar. You can buy him one there. Maybe he'll buy you one. JD, I once went out with JD late. This is years ago. I don't know. Maybe you were there. Maybe I don't remember. But I don't remember a lot from that night, other than he didn't let me. Related people said Guy could not stay in the apartment, and I had to sleep in the car in the parking garage until I woke up around 5 a.m. and headed home. So Tito's handmade vodka, America's original craft vodka, distilled and bottled in Austin, Texas. 40% alcohol by volume, namely 80 proof, crafted to be savored responsibly. Raise one to a friend. Have it in your home when friends come over. Take it over to a friend's house as you're a guest. You'll be a great guest. Tito.
Here's what I know. In the streets of Walnut Creek, and before I left the mean streets of Creek, I ventured over a decent amount to the Danville area. A lot of Tito's is consumed in that kind of like 20, 30, even up to Pleasanton. Castlewood, great country club, had a short-lived stint there. A lot of Tito's there as well. So that Pleasanton to Walnut Creek stretch, there is a good amount of Tito's alcohol getting consumed.
Yeah.
On the old, what freeway is it? 680?
680? 13?
No, it's a 680 going from like Walnut Creek to Pleasanton to
Gotcha.
or Danville, Pleasanton, down to, work your way down toward Old Jed, down. You got to cut across. Kind of a pain, but
yeah. Justin on the stream, Danville resident here. Tito's is a hit at all the bars. I went to the St. Mary's basketball game on Monday night. Shout out to our buddy Ryan Reggiani, who got me courtside seats. Sitting next to Randy Bennett's wife, lovely. Had a nice time chatting with her. And
who they playing?
Utah.
Oh,
big sellout. Sellout. It's a small gym, but good crowd. They have multiple hangout areas. And guess who I bumped into on the patio? You know the answer.
Matt Mayoko.
Matt Mayoko was there. And then Ryan took me to the other VIP area. And then they got like 3 VIP areas. You just give me a tour. A lot of Tito's being ordered at those bars. A lot of bartenders slanging Tito's.
Who won?
Utah.
That's Santa Clara not as good this year?
St. Mary's?
Excuse me, St. Mary's.
3-4 now.
Shit. That's a bad. Usually they're
Journey
like
might be gone.
Aren't they usually like 3-4 and 2 of the losses are to the Zags?
They scheduled tough. They lost to Xavier.
They had to lose a lot of people because last year was one of their better teams, right? Last couple years.
Yep. So
don't sleep on Randy Bennett. That little guy, little bald guy, just got a little edge to him. Always
I believe he'll find a way, John. I believe in him. Anyway,
what did Mayoko say?
we didn't talk about football. I wish I in hindsight, I was like, I should have interviewed Matt Mayoko while he was drinking an IPA on the patio, but we didn't talk about football.
Can you everywhere that guy goes, he goes to a lot of those games. how did it had to be one thing during some of those Chip Kelly, Mike Nolan era. But when the team is good,
yeah,
I wonder if it's actually more exhausting because he knows, like, when they suck, like, what are we going to do? It's easy to shit on them. It's like, do I really have to answer 8 questions about Purdy, Debo, Trent Williams' status, Kyle Shanahan's relationship with Steve Wilks? It's actually more complicated because people have, like, really want to know, like, are we good enough? What's the deal, man? Steve Wilks, like, is he good at what are we going to do? Like, what are other options if it doesn't work out? Trent Williams, if he retires, like, what's our next pitch, Matt?
Right. Well, are we going to rotate guards?
Yeah. I mean, what is Drake Jackson a bust? Like, is we going to re-sign Chase, or what are we going to do with Aiyuk's future? It's like you're asking, like, macro, micro. People, everyone just knows everything about all the different angles. So much about all the individuals. When your team sucks, you're just like, get rid of everybody. When your team's good, like, the contract status of, like, your third wide receiver. Like, are we really going to restrictive free agency? You think we're going to put a second round tender on Juwan? Or
what do you see with Danny Gray, Matt? You see anything with Danny Gray? Could he replace Brandon Aiyuk? No,
like, maybe you have a take on one of the guys. Does that guy still exist? I haven't thought about him in a while.
He does walk the planet currently, yes.
Daniel Gray. That one. In fairness, John, remember we talked to him on the sideline. Was very excited about the trio of Drake Jackson, Ty Davis Price, Danny Gray.
Yeah.
And in fairness, there was a lot to be excited about with that little group. Like, wait, this guy went to LSU, ran for like 700 yards against Florida. Wait, this Danny Gray guy runs a 4.4, breaks tackles and blocks. And Drake Jackson has all this talent. It was all Clay Helton's fault. Turns out, hey, we're still good, whatever.
That's right.
No one really cares about draft picks.
What's the, how Dave Chappelle lives in like some small town in Ohio and like nobody bothers him? Like everyone just treats him like normal Dave. That's why he likes living there. I doubt it. But I mean, that's the thing. He says he lives there. It kind of felt like, they protect Dave. Like Dave's their own. That's how it felt at St. Mary's with Mayoka. Like, people kind of understand. Like Matt's not here to do his 49ers podcast. Matt's here to drink a beer and watch a basketball game and yell at the refs.
We build this program to beat Gonzaga, and Matt Mayoka's part of that.
Matt Mayoka's a part of that. I didn't see him in the 25,000 and up donor lounge, but then again, I was there and I didn't donate $25,000 to St. Mary's. So,
how many people were in that donor lounge?
Felt like 40. Nice little. It's like behind one of the baskets, glass, just overlooking the court.
What do you think the equivalent? Because obviously St. Mary's a basketball school. Like, what does that version at like Kentucky or North Carolina look like? I mean, it's got to be outrageous.
I think Louisville has a really nice setup at their arena, like behind, like a luxury area behind, kind of on the floor, kind of but back.
I've been to KU's arena. It's fucking massive. I mean, it's like an NBA.
What do you think? I think it's like 18,000.
Yeah, it's huge. I think North Carolina's 24.
North Carolina is very big. Because I remember somebody telling me last year who knew Roy Williams. He's like, Roy had to go to North Carolina, but I think he always missed walking the sidelines of Kansas. He's like, the atmosphere at Kansas is just unmatched.
Well, sometimes if you get TV doesn't, I've never been there, obviously, but TV makes it feel a little bit bigger than it actually is. I think people say the Duke arena is not big.
I didn't go for a game, but I went on a tour there one time because the Fresno State women's basketball team was playing at North Carolina, so we went on a tour of Duke. And it was very small.
Was that when they had the coach slinging SAT scores to his recruits?
Adrian, that was a bad deal, man. Coach Wiggins didn't deserve what he got.
I don't judge.
Yeah, he's back. I think he's coaching the Clovis East. I saw him maybe a year or two ago. Great guy.
Fresno always draws you back.
It does, John. All right. Well, what do we got today? One thing we thought we'd talk about with Shanahan, and Frank on the stream says, so a week 12 game is a big moment for a coach who's been to 3 NFC championship games and a Super Bowl. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about what this game represents for old Kyle Shanahan. What's big about it? Besides, would suck for him to lose to Nick Sirianni in a big spot.
Well, you lose to Nick Sirianni, you know for a fact the 1 seed is gone, right? Would we all acknowledge that? Yep. The Eagles can legitimately clinch a playoff berth with a win this weekend. I saw a headline. But I think unofficially, like the 1 seed would be theirs. because they would still have a multiple game. They would be then in the same situation the following week against the Cowboys, right? Where even if Dallas beats them, who gives a shit? That game would truly mean nothing to Philly. I would say if Philly wins this game, the following week in Dallas, you could like rest starters just to like take a bye week in early December. Like honestly, you could take a deep breath. This game, it's not even arguable that it's more important to the 49ers. They're the more desperate team given their record. Their team is much more well-rested given that they played on Thursday in, for the most part, beside one quarter, a relatively easy game. They're fully healthy. The Eagles are just played 2 knockdown dragouts against, I know the Bills are a weird 6-16 because it's hard to watch the Bills when Josh is like that and be like, if the Bills weren't playing like the Eagles, the Niners, or the Chiefs that day, does anyone else beat them the way Josh was playing? I mean, they win that game. I mean, that's to win that game against a player like that. Someone DM me like, would you think about trading Josh Allen this offseason if you could get a bigger haul than what they got for Russell Wilson? I'm like, I don't think there's any amount you could trade me for Josh Allen. That my whole goal would be to find Josh Allen. So like, let's say the Bears were like, we'll give you pick 1, we'll give you pick 6, we'll give you 2 more ones. You can be like, no, I'd rather just have Josh Allen than all that.
Yeah, your goal would be to stabilize his offensive coordinator and his. I mean, that would be he's had 2 offense, right? That's if you're gonna try and make fixes, you would do it other places, but you spend your whole career looking for Josh Allen.
Yeah, and like his cap hit, I think next year goes like 18 to almost 50. It's like, yeah, he's the level of player where you just restructure and keep kicking the can down the road. Like you don't care. But my point is like that was really impressive, right? For them to win that game, even more than Kansas City, right? Because Kansas City was dropping the ball left and right. Like the Niners a couple weeks ago, I guess it was a little longer than that now, faced a quarterback that just felt like, holy shit, this guy fucking is on in Burrow. And they kind of eviscerated the Niners.
Right.
So, I mean, it's just, to me, this is a moment coming off the extra rest. And those 3 days are pretty big, especially when you factored in that they just played on Monday night. Like it is a massive advantage. And to me, it's just a big moment for Kyle Shanahan. Like you're seeing these ratings come out. The number, I mean, there are going to be 30 million people watching this game. Like this is easily not just on paper, but if it is just semi-close, the amount of people that are going to be dialed in on this with opinions based on what we see, fans, every human being watching it is going to be high. Like, I'm sorry, you lose. We can say what we want, make fun of Nick Sirianni. The dude just keeps winning. This is very, very important. I especially what happened last year. The players, it's not like Debo back down from his comments. Like your team is healthy. Like they're favored for a reason. Like they should win this game when you factor in over the last 2 weeks, right? Niners got healthy. They got more breaks. This team played in a gauntlet 2 weeks, leaking oil just in terms of rest and shit coming into the game. Like you should win. Sirianni's sleeping in the office. Kyle's fucking, at Big Sur probably with his family. Like this, and listen, it's not going to determine the season, but it would be a pretty big blow to lose this game. I would say you don't have to blow them out or anything, but just win the game by 1 point. And honestly, that would be the most impressive thing. I would find more if you're like, God, the Niners were down 6 going in the fourth quarter and they won by 5. Right. Like, God, they finally figured out how to do that.
On one hand, you'd say, oh, to get a 7-point lead, and then it looks like the Seattle game, which is the Seattle game, easy to forget, was a 1-score game going into the fourth quarter, and then Kittle scores, and then you score again, and you comfortably win that game.
It was 24-3 at half, right?
The Seahawks Niner game.
You're talking on Thursday night?
Yeah, on Thursday night. Yeah.
What was the halftime score?
Was it 24-3?
21-3.
They scored a couple. I mean, it was 20. It was 20. What was it? 24-17 at the beginning of the fourth quarter, I think. Pull up the box score. Maybe tell me if I'm wrong.
It was 24-3 at half. And then they scored 10 quick in the third quarter. And so it was 24-13. And it felt, I mean, they had all the momentum. The Niners weren't doing anything. But again, 24-3 at half.
A field goal to make it 24-16?
No, they didn't. The final score was 31-3.
So that's the final score was what?
Well, when Purdy threw the touchdown, it was 24-13. Purdy throws the touchdown to Aiyuk. It's 31-13. Seattle never did anything.
Sorry, I'm talking about the playoff game with Seattle last year.
Oh! I got you.
I rewatched that game this morning.
That game was okay.
And it felt like a domination, and Brock threw for 330 and blah, blah, blah. But it was, I think you were, might have been down at the half, close to
You
the
were,
half.
okay, yeah. Wasn't it like 15-13 or something?
Yeah, exactly. So, we've seen that game 100 times. We have not.
Purdy was a little weird early in that game, right?
Yeah, I mean, I went back and watched the whole thing today. Like, the first ball he threw in the rain was a dead duck, and then Kyle called another throw, and he threw it down the hash and hit Aiyuk, and I was like, okay, well, but he missed some throws. He almost threw a couple picks over the middle of the field in that game. But he also, you know what else he did in that game? Threw 2 touchdowns where he had to like get out of trouble and then on the move find a running back. He hit McCaffrey for one. He hit Elijah Mitchell for another one.
Didn't he have a play in that game where he did like a couple 360s and like rolled left? I mean, it was kind of
that was the game where he had some terrifying roll left and then like frame up on the sideline just to make sure that whoever was chasing him had a free shot at his sternum, and then like throw the ball 40 yards down the field out of bounds. Reed Blankenship, Kevin Byard, James Bradbury, Darius Slay all played 95 snaps against the Bills. Nicholas Morrow, Hassan Reddick played 87 and 83. Josh Sweat played 81. Jalen Carter played 76. Jordan Davis played 62 snaps.
This is after a Monday Night Football game against the champs.
In which I think they played like, I can go back and tell you, I think it was like 74 snaps. Let me see here. The week before Max against Kansas City. Read all those guys that I just said played 95, played 79 the week before. Hassan Reddick played 68 snaps 2 weeks ago and then played 83 snaps against the Bills.
I was at the gym today and I saw, one of the TVs. I always think it's YouTube, but I guess it's on ESPN2 now. McAfee and Lombardi was on, so I just clicked it on my phone. And he had a point, like how he didn't know the exact stat numbers. He just knew it was a lot, the overtime game. And now when you factor that in, you're talking 150 snaps for some of these guys. And Darius Slay's an older player, right? Yeah, Jalen Carter's a rookie, but some of the Byards, this guy's over 30. So how do you, his point was like, Sirianni, how do you really practice this week? Does this turn into more of a walkthrough? Because you can't, they're a veteran team, right? Kelsey's old. Lane Johnson was injured last week. Brandon Graham's old. Fletcher Cox old. And some of those guys, Fletcher.
Lane Johnson injured. Did you say that?
Yeah, I said it. Yeah.
Oh,
Byard's old. Slay, Bradbury, older players. I wonder if their practices this week are much more of a glorified walk, just in fairness to human beings. Like, if Kyle was in that situation, you cannot just run a normal practice. And this is like
what it takes to
they've already
defense against this team too.
Yeah, so
tackling required on the outside if you're a DB, right?
Honestly, I don't think I'm speaking crazy here. I could see the 49ers win this game by like 20 points. Like Eagles just running out of juice and the Niners just coming out fucking like this is a big moment for them, because it is. There's no arguing that. It's a bigger moment for the 49ers than it is the Eagles. Not that it's not a moment for the Eagles, but when you factor in the last, 10 days, it's way, and what it means big picture for the Niners to come back, because more than likely the Niners are going to have to come back in the NFC Championship game for Kyle just to like do what he's been doing, beat the shit out of people, which is going to be hard because we go, well, that's probably not how the playoff game is going to look. And I don't really know what you learn, because when the Niners play like that, we know their high end's really good.
Yeah.
But I'm not saying it's a bad thing to win.
You're saying you would learn more about them if they win a game where they actually have their B game, but it's kind of gritty and grimy and they don't get to play from ahead. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Just like you learn more about a person in adversity than when everything's going well.
It's now, part of that game was, Josh was making plays with his legs that were pretty outrageous. Yeah. Like, Purdy's a good athlete. He does not have that in the bag.
He might get the ball out quicker, though.
Yeah, but if it's raining, it's harder to throw, right? And, back to the Purdy thing, a rain in Levi Stadium's a little bit different than, Philly rain, I would say.
To me, my comp, John, it's the Browns game with more scoring, because it's just, even though the Browns defense is better than the Eagles defense, because of their defensive line, the level of physicality required and the mental stress of protecting Brock on every play is still going to be really high. The crowd's going to be similar. It's like the attitude is going to be similar. Their team has the same confidence that like Cleveland's defense has. And I think, not only to your point, you win the game, it's your only shot at getting the 1 seed. Because here we are talking about rest versus being worn out. The 1 seed, it's not just the home field advantage, it's the bye, which we've seen the Niners against the Jags when they had that bye. Like, they looked incredible. Both of these teams, just based on what we've seen already this year, are gonna, one of them is gonna be so thankful for that bye. But also maybe if you beat them, you can finally get it to break a little bit. And maybe Dallas gets them the next week again. You know, people think Philly's lucky right now. Well, no great team has ever won without getting breaks that go their way, but taking advantage of breaks too. Like, you take advantage of it. Maybe if you can break it just a little bit, maybe it causes another loss for them. But the other thing,
I do think the point differential with them, I don't know what you make over like a smaller sample size. To me, once you get to like December, it is pretty indicative, because you're going to play a lot of teams, if you're a really good team, who aren't nearly as good as you. And you should, in the NFL, it's not college, you're not going to win 60-0, but you should have some 30-10 wins. And if you have 3 or 4 of those and you end up being a 9-2 team, or like them 10-1, that point differential should be easily over 100. And they just haven't had any of those, which is a little weird. And it gets back to the Jalen thing, that they have just started really slow in all these games. And whether it's his injury, whether it's the new coordinator, whatever it is, it hasn't mattered, because they turned it on in the second half. Which, is there any team in the league that wouldn't trade places with them, shittier point differential for their record? Of course not. So this isn't like it ultimately doesn't matter, but it is indicative of what these people like. I do agree with the analytical community when they say, like, this is an outlier situation, what we're seeing. Yeah. Like, I saw some of the DVOA guys, other teams that have been 10-1. It was like a Broncos team and one other team, and this Eagles team, that they were all saying like much better. And partly because you believe in what you've seen before. I think the 2012 Falcons team was one of them. Remember, that was the team that the 49ers beat in the NFC Championship game with Julio Jones and Matt Ryan to go to the Super Bowl.
Got away with a Montrose holding in the red zone.
Yeah, clearly this team's better than that team. But it is something to just – eventually you lose one of those games if you just play in enough one of these kind of swing back. And the Niners just don't really play in them. They played in blowouts, and then they've lost the close games.
Yeah. This is like I agree with you. It means something, but my attitude this week is.
But last year they dominated those games. Last year they were beating. Right. Remember, they beat the shit out of everybody.
I know.
Last year they looked like the Niners. This year they haven't.
I just know that they have proven this year they can win those games, and I think the Niners can win those games, but they have not proven they can win that game. And so I'm not going to use the fact that the Niners beat the Steelers and the Jags by a combined 64-10 to be the thing that puts them over the top this week.
Have you ever seen a team that it doesn't happen? I guess maybe if you follow a team really closely, the yardage comes up. I don't remember, unless yardages are stupid high. Like, God, they had 700 yards of offense. But it's rare that you celebrate like we had 420 yards of offense. That's what the Steelers did. It's like, guys, you had 16 points. Like, they're like, God, you had 16. You won the game 16-10 against Jake Browning. But they're elated. I mean, that is one of the Niners' better wins this year on the road, beating the shit out of them.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's a team that's celebrated. I'm not trying to diminish. Like, the Niners beat the crap out of them. No one's trying to like act like this Niner team isn't the real deal, or the Eagles. Both, I think, have some flaws. Right now, the Niners' safety position is somewhat concerning in their DBs. The Eagles' just overall linebacker DB unit. Clearly, their offense isn't a problem, even when it has 3 and outs, and they do have some. Because one thing we get a lot is like Jalen versus Purdy. And I get tweeted this, DM'd it when we see it on the stream, like the numbers.
My barber asked me today, John.
Do you know what we never talk about and I never think about? But it's like, it's a dramatic. Jalen has 11 rushing touchdowns. 11.
Yeah.
So if Jalen gets to 30 passing touchdowns, give or take, he's going to add another 15 plus rushing touchdowns. So when I was thinking like him and Purdy have similar, Jalen is also like a kind of version of Lamar Jackson as well. How did they just win the Bills game? He fucking ran it in. The play was literally just quarterback draw, which is a potent play for them against the majority of teams that don't have Fred Warner. It's going to be harder to do it this week, but like he's like, the more I thought about it, and to me, Purdy is an MVP candidate. But when we talk about him, like, we can't, subjectively not include that. Like, that's an objective fact. He brings an element that Purdy, who is a really good athlete, is like this athletic Drew Brees, but he's not like he's never going to have 10 rushing touchdowns this season. Jalen has 10 before December every year.
And he's a major part of this game, right? Like, if we went down the list that picked the 5 most important players in this game, I mean, Fred Warner would have to be on the list in terms of just somebody's going to have to tackle Jalen Hurts. Keep an eye on Jalen Hurts. It feels like it's a matter of time in every game before he kills you on a play. And unlike Lamar Jackson, Jalen has elite guys to throw the ball to, right?
Exactly.
He's got 50-50 ball monsters and a dude that nobody can catch. I mean, if you can catch Devontae Smith, you can body slam him, but you got to catch him. So I think this game is, I mean, the MVP is kind of on the line here. I think Hurts, I've not looked at the odds today or in a while. I think Jalen, given the fact that they're 10-1, if the Eagles win on Sunday, then I think the MVP is probably going to end up being his, right? The quarterback who accounts for offense on a 14-2 team is generally going to be the MVP when you're as dynamic as he is. Even if you look up, you're like, I don't know what his season completion percentage is. I just know every time I watch him, his highlight reel is going to be as good as anybody's highlight reel.
Yeah.
He was 55% the other night against the Bills. I would imagine his season completion percentage is probably 64. But now if the Niners win the game,
67.
67. All right, he's an MVP. He's the MVP if they win this game because they're going to be 14-2. And he's going to throw, how many touchdowns is he going to throw?
Well, he's got 18 now, so he's got 6 games left. No, it probably be like 28. But
28, but he'll run another.
What if he runs for
15?
17? He's got 11.
Now, if the Niners beat him, then maybe Kyle Shanahan turns Brock into the MVP. If the Niners beat him, maybe Kyle Shanahan delivers the first running back MVP since Adrian Peterson. If the Niners beat him, maybe he still has a great year and goes 14-2 and still wins the MVP. But I think a lot of what happens in this game, the Niners have just big time. McCaffrey can have a game, or if Brock can have a game, and then you do it again against the Ravens, and you somehow get the 1 seed. The Niners can really get MVP ball rolling in this. And I think Jalen, I think, is the most likely guy to get the MVP. Even if they lose the game, they still go 13-3 at worst.
I wonder if Christian could get back into it because statistically, he's got 1,000 yards almost. He's got 11 rushing touchdowns. He has 5 in the air, and he already has 48 catches. So if you rush for 1,600 yards,
league, right? Leading the league in rushing?
Yeah, let's say 1,650, and let's say he gets to 70-plus catches, and he goes off these next couple weeks against the Eagles, later against the Ravens. He's going to, I would say, goose his numbers a little bit against the Arizonas of the world, right? Seattle, again, their defense isn't great, and obviously they play well against the Rams. I would say he could throw his hat back in. It doesn't feel like he's in the mix. Like, everyone's just acknowledging, like, first team All-Pro, best running back. But I think when you just talk MVP, he kind of fell out of favor after a couple, just his statistic, the games weren't as good. Part of it, like, they just weren't as good on offense. But I do think he could easily throw his hat back in the ring with 150 yards and a couple touchdowns in this, where he's like, was he the best player on the field today? I mean, there's a lot of like, was he the best player on the field? Because you're right. If Jalen's the best player on the field, throws for 2 touchdowns, runs for another 2, like, it's going to be pretty hard. Like, he might just win it. Like, it might be unofficially over.
Well, just think about it, what I said with the record. Like, he's going to go 14-2.
Well,
if the Eagles win this game, maybe they go 15-1. Yeah, 15-2. Sorry.
17 games. Yeah.
Old math.
Yeah. I mean, he wins it last year if he doesn't miss those 3 games with the injury, right? The game just kind of went to
Eagles should have like multiple quarterback MVP. Carson was going to win it the year he got hurt, which would have been crazy to look back on a Carson Wentz MVP.
What would have been crazier, Carson or Derek?
Carson's year would have measured up over.
I'm saying aged. Like, what?
Yeah, I don't
know if you watched the other day. Derek looks terrible.
Well, they play the Lions this week.
Who does?
The Saints. Like the Niners and the Lions. Here's the other part of this game, John. The Niners and the Lions have the same record. Now, the Niners have the tiebreaker right now based on NFC winning percentage.
I like the Lions in that game.
Yeah, so you lose, like you could end up not just not the 1 seed, but also the 3 seed pretty quickly if you lose this game.
Yeah.
Which is back where you were a couple weeks ago.
I guess they've played the Packers twice, huh? I do think the Lions could. I don't know, actually, no. They got the Saints, the Bears. Denver game's a little harder. Vikings, Cowboys, Vikings.
But I got my first Lions moment of the year last week, and I think we got another one coming. But
they're still getting to 12, right?
Yeah, if they're 9-3 and you're 8-4, then they're 9-3 and you're 8. Like they,
yeah. Packers sneaky playing kind of good.
Well, I mean, are they?
Seattle's no lock to make the playoffs.
I think the Packers are going to make the playoffs.
As the
Minnesota,
17th?
I haven't looked at Minnesota. Yeah, well, yeah.
It would be the
Minnesota could fall out of there.
Well, I guess who would be the 6th too? I guess the Rams are alive as well.
The Rams are alive as well.
The NFC after the Cowboys is not great.
No. Well, actually, before the Cowboys too. If you're looking at the standings, if you're looking at the playoff standings.
Yeah. If you kick
South.
Yeah.
The other part of it is you texted me like this is. I saw people. Was it yesterday or Sunday? Like, yeah. Tepper should have hired Wilks. Things settled down post-bye. Wilks went to the field. Niners look good. But Wilks could flex a little bit this week. You know, I don't want to take your take because you texted me today, but this was the guy Kyle picked. And now here he is. You know, your defensive coordinator, your Dick LeBeau's, your Vic Fangios, like they kind of get their swagger in these games against sweet QBs, right? Like, what do you do? What did Belichick do in the Super Bowl against the Wonder Kid? I guess it's technically Wonderkind, Sean McVay. Like he dominated him. These are the types of games where that your Jim Schwartzes of the world, Rex Ryans, like they live for games like this, right?
Is there a chance? I watched a little Tepper today. What if he's like, God, I should have just hired the guy? And what if they just go on this run and the defense starts looking good again and he just rehires them because he already knows them? It's just kind of easy. There are not many great candidates. Schefter said yesterday to McAfee there are going to be like 7 to 10 openings. Who the fuck? There aren't 7. I'll tell you this. William Belichick becomes a lot more fascinating. Like, are 6 of those teams going to be – is his bidding going to go up? Right? I mean, would the Bills fire McDermott for Bell if he's going to get fired? Like, things get weird fast. They're not – it does not feel like there's a million Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay as coordinators. And last year, the Lions guy declined stuff. Now, that probably usually doesn't, D'Amico did that once upon a time too, but he can only take one job, and some of these teams aren't going to take him. So you just wonder, as someone that thought like, God, is this guy going to get fired at the bye week? Well, things change. Things change fast. And let's face it, like if they would have had someone else on staff, it would have been on the table. Things got weird, and they got weird really quick. And it started with Kyle. So I don't regret saying anything we said about that. Kyle created that by clearly not being happy because his players weren't happy. It was awkward. Usually people lie through their teeth. Dayball, love Wink. No, you guys hate each other. That was like, what the fuck did Kyle
Tepper
say?
Love Bryce.
Yeah,
we'd all draft him again. That's what he said.
Well, what's he supposed to say? He can't redo it. He's fucked. So maybe Wilks. Maybe the Niners look like geniuses. All of a sudden, I mean, if there really are 8 head coaching openings, he's probably getting some interviews, you would think, if things keep going well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And any equity he has as a head coach isn't necessarily connected to his equity as a defensive coordinator, right? Like he might be the argument would be maybe I'm a better head coach than I am a defensive coordinator. Doesn't usually get you a job, but
I mean, let's look at 2 of the better coaches in the AFC. What do they do on game day? Tomlin and Harbaugh call timeouts. Like what?
And Sirianni.
But at least to me, Sirianni is very heavily in the game plan on offense. Like I know, like he's going to me. I don't Tomlin and especially Harbaugh. Like what are they doing?
Well, I mean,
it's crazy to say. Like those guys are proven leaders and been doing a lot longer than Nick. Nick is active in the game planning and the offensive. If you told me John Harbaugh's bouncing around, like what's, I don't know.
Special teams.
Yeah. But what are you telling Justin Tucker? Like, hey man, try not to slip when you kick.
So like Ben Johnson, right? The Lions offensive coordinator. I saw Schefter said on McAfee on Monday, him and Brian Johnson, the Eagles OC, will be candidates, which is pretty crazy if you think about it. How many quarterbacks have gotten as good as they've gotten that required the level of development that Jalen Hurts required, right? He's like a developed quarterback, right? Whoever you give the credit to, and most of it goes to him. Maybe it's his personal QB coach. But if Brian Johnson leaves in 2024, Jalen Hurts will then have his 5th different play caller in 5 years, because he had Doug, he had Sirianni / Steichen year 2, then he had Steichen year 3, then he's got Brian Johnson year 4, then he's got somebody else year 5.
Brian Johnson's going to get a head coaching job this year.
No, but I'm just saying, like, if you got
2 months ago, everyone wanted the guy fired.
John, I understand, but the MVP of the league's OC usually gets a job eventually.
Yeah. I mean, after 1 year, and I also think people are going to go, again, I'm not saying you're wrong.
I don't think it's likely. I agree with you. I do agree.
But I don't even blame Schefter. Who else? Who's the candidate? Like, the Niners don't have one, do they?
Another offensive guy, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, would Bobby Slowick get a job?
Would he get a lot of credit for CJ this year?
Yeah.
Is Bobby Slowick getting interviews if there are 8 openings? Feels like he would, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Whoever Mike McDaniel's right-hand guy is in Miami. But there's not like these high level, there are some, Flores, I know he sued the league, but I think it's pretty clear Flores is a pretty good defensive coordinator. Like, Flores knows what he's doing as a coach. Now, his personality, does he get along with quarterbacks and stuff? But it's going to be very, very weird and awkward. That's where I think the Niners can benefit. Like, Steve someone needs to get hired somewhere. So, I mean, if Harbaugh doesn't come to the NFL, I don't see the candidates. There aren't just no-brainers.
David Shaw, I saw I just got a Bleacher Alert that he's been linked to the Raiders job.
I feel like Mark would be more likely to keep Antonio Pierce than hire him.
John Gruden got connected to like the Indiana job.
I saw that. That'd be awesome.
Lincoln Riley, right? Lincoln was asked the other day. He said no, but if you're the Bears and Caleb says, I need Lincoln, what do you do?
Caleb, just OTA start April 30th.
But who's in charge? Who?
Virginia McCaskey.
No, it's
Caleb.
It's the commissioner from the Big Ten.
Oh yeah, Kevin Warren.
Yeah,
I can't imagine he's
Poles. Is Ryan Poles getting to hire the coach?
Well, that's the thing why, Harbaugh might not be an option there, right? They butted heads when Kevin Warren wanted to cancel football forever, and Jim Harbaugh and Justin Fields said, fuck you. And they said, we're playing. All the parents. As the SEC was like already 7 games in.
SEC's like, we've already got 3.
Yeah, I can't even relate.
CFP, we're the top 10 teams. One other thing I wanted to bring up today was just that the NFC kind of lacked with the Seattle Niners falling off, with the Rams having their second straight bad year. The NFC, what are the best
Rams aren't kind of right of the ship.
Sorry, yeah.
No, I know what you're saying.
That wasn't an anti-Ram standpoint. What I'm getting at is just a big NFC rivalry. Yeah. Niners Cowboys. You could roll that thing out at any time of day, any day of the week, any week of the year, and it would rate like a rivalry, and it is one. The Niners just own it right now, but it's a rivalry. It feels like a big-ass game every time those two teams play right now because they're both 2 of the best teams in the league. Niners-Eagles last year met for I think it was the 2nd playoff meeting ever when they met last year. So now we got another big game here. Maybe you meet again in the playoffs. Now that's 4. They're both on their way to winning their divisions, which means they would play again next year too, right? With the first place schedule. And there's enough animosity that this is kind of feels like 0-60, the rivalry in the NFC now. Now we'll see how the game plays out, but it feels like it could, with the right type of game, it could become that. Now, are you going to surpass the rating you get on Cowboys Niners? Probably not. Or Eagles Niners. I mean, Eagles Cowboys, because that's obviously a rivalry. But
did you see the Cowboys rating on
got a shot
Thanksgiving?
here.
I thought that's the worst time slot for us on the West Coast, the day game.
It was at 40 plus 46. What was it?
41. I think the morning game was 37, and the night game was like 27.
The Niners game.
Maybe it's because people on the East Coast are just sleeping.
Yeah, it's always weird to me that game doesn't rate as high.
Yeah, obviously the day slot is the premium slot, and they put the Cowboys there for a reason. I was thinking today, could this turn into a little Cowboys 49ers, back in the day? Now, the difference was when you won that game, you won the Super Bowl. Right. For 3 straight years, they played, and the team that won it that last year, that did not happen. It's almost like a trio of animosity, right? I'd even throw the Cowboys in there, which is good for the sport, right? Because you're just starting to get consistency of games. And even though the Niners have beat the rivalry is one-sided right now, they're playing consistently in meaningful games. When they play, it matters a lot, right? They played twice in the playoffs, the Eagles in the playoffs. If you're the 2 seed and the Eagles are the 1 seed, you would play those 2 teams again, like potentially again, right? There would be a matchup depending on how it broke, where the Niners, Eagles, and Cowboys, one of those 2 teams is playing each other back-to-back games, which is incredible for the league.
Right. Because
once Rodgers went to the Jets, like the Niners-Packers game really meant something. It felt big. It actually was much more consistent over the years because of the Harbaugh era, the Shanahan era, when we were kids with the Favre and Young era. And now hopefully we get this again with these, with the Cowboys. Like, let's face it, we can diminish them all they want. Their team is well built. They're not going anywhere, especially the NFC sucks. And the Eagles are definitely not going anywhere. And it doesn't look like the Niners are going anywhere. So hopefully we get, for the next couple of years, all these teams playing each other. And it kind of develops into a little, depending, if the Eagles win the division and the Niners win the division, like, they're going to play each other again next year.
Right.
Right. You get that kind of Peyton Manning, Tom Brady. Like, they got to play each other twice a year for felt like a decade, regular season and the playoffs. And that's when the fucking league is built on the back of that shit, and that's like the one thing the NBA just purely lacks because of the mercenary nature of the players is like, What is this? What's going on here?
Right.
Like, I'm sorry, you watch Chris Paul in a Warriors jersey, it looks weird. You watch Kevin Durant in a Sun, it's all just like, what? Kyrie in a
David Stern outlaw NFL jersey swaps at the end of the game.
I heard someone talk about it again.
I get rid of the jersey swaps, John.
Player from the 90s was like, I do think it's a little weird. I get it if it's a completely random game.
How many walls do these guys have? They're
but
hanging
if you're like
all these jerseys?
If you're like a great player, like, I get it if you're Tom Brady, people want your jersey and you just beat them. But if it's like, I don't know, Chiefs Chargers or whatever, and you're going to be on the Chargers for a while, like, why are you going to like this guy? This is not the other sports where guys just bounce around. You're going to play that guy for a while. You should try to create some animosity. Now you could say you're old man on a cloud. Things have changed. It's a little weird. Now, I will say this about the jersey swap. You never feel like, oh, these guys are just friends. They're taking it easy on each other. Like in the NBA, sometimes they'll just stand there. Yeah. Like, what the fuck is going on? In football, when the game is going on, it feels very violent still relative to, the times. It never feels like, Micah Parsons really taking it easy on Trent today. They must be swapping at the end of the game. If that ever happened, we might as well just shut it down.
You know what I saw the other day after I think it was Eagles Chiefs, and they show like the players on the field. It wasn't a jersey swap, but the 2 guys that who immediately talks. The kickers always go talk. It was Mariota and Gabbert. We're like handshake, hug. What's up, man? How you doing? Like the backup quarterbacks. I think always like to go talk. But
what time they make you get in on Wednesdays?
Yeah. How's the family? Oh, I'm seeing them a lot right now. There was one other part of that rivalry I wanted to mention. Oh. Here's the other thing. Jalen's 25 years old. Brock's 23, right? Like, they're young. So if you've got 2 top 10 quarterbacks, they've got a decade of being top 10 quarterbacks. What was the comment you just put up?
What about Hockey Lee and Hurts' jersey swap?
That was a good. I did see that one. That was a good one. That Photoshop.
Because I do think the penalty discrepancy was like 10-1
in the first half. Yeah.
the Bills were also up by 10, I think, or definitely a touchdown. Like, they were winning. But I think these two guys have a lot in common just in terms of how serious they take shit. And both guys, do you know what the all Big 12 first team and second team quarterbacks were in 2019?
These two?
Oklahoma and Iowa State. And then the next 2 years, he goes to the pros. Purdy's the first team. So it was Jalen, Purdy, 1 and 2. Obviously, Jalen's only at Oklahoma 1 year, goes pro, and then Purdy's the first teamer the next 2 years. And I do wonder, their paths were different, right? Purdy was begging to go to schools that laughed, at him, that Jalen they were opening their arms for, right? I mean, this is Alabama in the peak of their dynasty. And I would say Oklahoma was a very desired place with Lincoln Riley. So his problems were first class, but he was told, you're benched. You're not the starter. Now, that was sitting, you were sitting in first class on a private jet football-wise with Nick Saban in the Alabama program, but you were still told that.
Yeah.
And Purdy was once upon a time told by Nick Saban, you're too short. You're not good enough to play here. So it's like, and obviously, and those, I just think they're, one guy goes second round, one goes seventh round.
Yeah.
Neither guy was anointed the starter when they got to the pros. People thought Jalen, like the draft pick, was nuts, right, with Carson Wentz. Purdy was an after. No one even talked. When you get drafted in the seventh round as a quarterback, people that go to your practices don't even really talk about you, do they? Like, you don't even matter.
Well, just Larry Krueger. He was the only one.
Yeah. Greg Papa liked him, the feet.
Oh, okay. The other similarity is once they each started having success, now Jalen's further down the road, people didn't believe it. System or, this is not real, right? That's Jalen got a lot of that. Obviously, Brock's getting it to some degree now.
But it gets back to when you're a later round pick, people don't want to believe it. Like, this is too good to be true. When you're a high pick, it's like, oh, no wonder he was taking high.
Right.
People have been dying for like a 4-touchdown game out of Justin Fields. See, I told you. Elite, 5-star, premium guy. If one of those guys had a stretch of football, like, those guys, you'd get run out of the league. You wouldn't
If you didn't know anything and just watch the Panthers, what round would you think that their quarterback, Bryce Young, got drafted in?
I think their first couple guys were injured and they're on like an undrafted free agent from like Eastern Carolina.
Like, is that, if you didn't have your contacts, you'd be like, is that PJ Walker?
Yeah, but PJ's fat. I mean, PJ's just physically more gifted. I think you'd think, like, what is this, a fan? It looks really weird.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
It's not. I do think the margin for error when you take smaller people and Purdy's small, Purdy's way bigger than him. Right? I mean, I think it's very, very small. And you get really risky really fast. And when things start going wrong, look at Lincecum. Once he couldn't throw 98, it was like, God, this guy stinks. I mean, Purdy has Bryce Young by, almost 3.5 inches and probably 25, 30 pounds. And when I view Purdy, I view him on the smaller end of quarterbacks. And he's like a power forward relative to a shooting guard relative to those two.
Yeah. How's Bryce look athletically to you?
I haven't watched that much Panthers.
I would have given you my opinion, but I haven't watched that much Panthers either.
He's not a great athlete. He's not. Bryce Young is not like an athlete. I mean, I know he's literally an athlete, but I'm just saying, like, he's not for a smaller guy. He's a pocket quarterback. Like, he's a quarterback. That's what he hung his hat on in Alabama. It was like throwing the ball from the pocket, which he was good at. Then you start thinking, like, wait, this guy was going to do it at 5'9", $175, and he's not super fast. It's kind of crazy when you start saying it out loud. And trust me, I thought he was sweet in college because he was. But now you start asking yourself, wait, the other guy's like 6'3", throws a beautiful ball and can move, and that guy went above him? What? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Bryce is dealing, if we're going to be, the one thing you'd have to say for him, he's living in extreme dysfunction at the moment. But yeah. You're right, like 50 or 60% of the time. I mean, we shouldn't be surprised when a number one overall pick is wrong, but we're surprised every time.
Yeah, to me, it's like coaches because I saw someone, I don't know if it was like USA Today or The Athletic, wrote an article that was like, the NFL owners still don't know who to hire. It's like, yeah, no one does. Like, unless you're hiring, like, if you're like Texas trying to hire Nick Saban or hiring Andy Reid, it's any coordinator or any draft pick is a complete roll of the dice. You have no clue. It's easy to be like, God, CJ Stroud, if anyone thought he was going to be this good, he would have been the no-brainer number one pick. It wouldn't even have been a question. It would have been like, well, do you want to then go with the upside of Anthony Richardson or the little guy Bryce Young? He would have been
Panthers traded twice as much for what they had to trade.
The Bears just would have taken him.
Yeah,
I think the Bears they would have taken him and traded Justin Fields. So you just can't like.
That's what's funny about it. The Bears are the real winners here. Yeah, well, maybe, or maybe they missed out on CJ Stroud.
But think about, we're doing it with Purdy, which we can argue, is he going to be a top 5 guy? Right now he's definitely a top 10 guy so far this individual season. If everyone knew, Brock Purdy goes in the first round. First round. That's where he'd go. Like, think about that. That's how valuable the position he plays.
How high would he go right now? Team X, not a Shanahan team, not the Niners.
Guys,
how high would he go?
Trey Lance's and Zach Wilson's, who can't play dead fucking in a Western, go second and third. So, yeah, I think he'd go really high. Now, in those situations, would he be as good? There are a lot of other factors, but like if you just threw him in next year's draft, is he going in the top 5?
Caleb would go ahead of him. May would go ahead of him. Would Nix or Penix go ahead of him?
I'd be hard pressed to say yes.
Yeah, I would too.
I think Nix is going to be a fascinating guy because I know he's talented, but I would say a lot like Ohio State. People are like, well, that offense, what does it really translate? I think these next lot of eyeballs going to be, you're going to the game Friday. I would guess how many, I bet there are 5-6 general managers at that game.
It's the only game that night.
And it's Friday night, so you don't play till Sunday. It's actually a pretty easy one for GMs to get to, because you could take off on Friday. Wherever you are around the country, fly into Vegas.
5 o'clock Friday night, so you can get out. You can get out of Vegas and get to one of the other champ games, or first thing Saturday morning.
I would guess, is every team in the NFL represented? And like several, if GMs aren't there, like number 2s and stuff, I bet there are going to be a lot of scouts.
You know better than me, but
I was always told the SEC championship game, you have to have a representative, and usually a representative that matters. I think this game falls under that category when you factor in those 2 quarterbacks. You got a guy that, Bo Nix is being talked about now as the 3rd quarterback. Now we can argue with Jaden Daniels and obviously Penix. I don't know where he ranks, but he doesn't rank no one's viewing him as like a 4th rounder. So, I would not be stunned.
You're right.
Ton of GMs. What did you say about Penix?
Well, I was just going to say, I think Jalen Daniels might go ahead of him too, even though Penix could win the Heisman. I don't know.
It's hard when you can't move. Is Penix going to win the Heisman?
I think it'll be, it's those 3 guys. It's Nix, Penix, or Daniels.
Votes already in, or you get this weekend?
You got the ballot. I think they put out the ballots the other day, but you have till Monday to vote.
So you get to watch these games this weekend.
Yeah.
But Jaden's has no game, correct?
No, he's got 3 losses. But his numbers are ridiculous. It's like 42-4. But the thing with the thing I wanted to say about Bo is, where's my passing depth? I think it's like, this sounds crazy. I think it's like 26% of his throws are behind the line of scrimmage.
Because of the offense? Well, obviously. You're saying they throw a lot of screens.
Yeah, they throw the ball. I'm just trying to find it right now.
But here's the thing. And I remember talking to Andy about this with the Texas Tech offense with Patrick Mahomes. So you just press a button and you siphon all those passes out. So you just evaluate them. Like those passes, you don't even watch them. If you assume, unless I tell you the completion percentage is like 50 on them, which it's clearly not. But
no, it's 95.
You got to. So it's basically like a free throw. I don't care. I siphon it all out, and then I just judge you on everything else. but he's not like Penix is much more. Their offense is much more aggressive down the field than Bo, right? Same with Jaden. I mean, Jaden throws down the field. Same, obviously, Caleb does too. And Drake.
So like, I mean, I got all the numbers here from PFF. 21% of Penix's attempts, 1 out of every 5 attempts is over 20 yards. Bo's half that, 11%. And Daniels is 17%.
But isn't the argument that, I mean, I'm pretty sure Daniels has a couple sweet wide receivers at LSU, and obviously Penix definitely does, right?
And Nix does too. He's got Troy Franklin.
I saw the one guy I was watching. Was it Washington State? Yeah, I think it was. How do you say his name? Odunze? Is that the wide receiver?
Rome Odunze.
They compared him to Devante as a college player, size, movement.
I saw that comp. Yeah.
I was going to text someone like, is this, because sometimes, the producer, you just throw it out there. Like, is this an NFL comp? Did they get it from? Or is this just like the analyst Brock Heward's take? Now, Brock knows NFL people. Maybe he asked around. I thought Odunze is more, but if you remember in college, Devante was running a lot of go routes, right?
Devante was open by 10 yards on all those. Well, not all of them, actually. He wasn't, actually.
This guy's bigger. Yeah. Like Devante 6'1". This guy's what, 6'3"?
He might be a little. Devante plays bigger than 6'1", doesn't he?
Yeah, I would guess 6'2.5", but I think they listed him on television as 6'1.5". He's not. When you watch Devante on the NFL, he's small. He's
this guy's not going in the second round.
Yeah, but I think the difference of if Devante had been doing what he did at the equivalent of Washington, right, like a Power 5 team in the top 7 or 8, Devante would have gone in the top 25 picks, right? I mean, Devante got dinged at the program he was at.
Derek too.
If they had done, because they were kind of Penix and this guy just at non-Power 5, but it's hard. Like, say what you want, like Derek might not be good anymore, but that was incredible value in the second round to get a 9-year starter. And obviously, Devante, you can't do any better. I do think sometimes at wide receiver, though, for every A.J. Brown, Devante, and there are a lot of like Ragers and just shitty picks. Yeah. So it's not like there's no guarantee for as great as Odunze is that he's going to. Remember the dude at TCU last year was killing everybody, and you watch him, he got benched last week for the Chargers.
Well, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, remember him from Stanford? Was a second rounder to the Eagles.
Yeah, but part of that was this was the Eagles' transitionary time. And he was like not fast, but somehow ran like a 4.40. And the Eagles fell in love with him. It was like, bro, he's not that fast, but he ran really fast.
Caught a lot of touchdowns because he was just a jump ball guy, but in college.
But Tank you get Dell, a lot of that.
He was a second rounder.
Third, I think.
Oh, Tank Dell was a third rounder.
Yeah, third rounder. But he's
Where
small.
Where did Danny Gray go? Oh, yeah, you're right. I'm sorry, I meant round. Tank Dell was like pick 82, maybe. Tank Dell was picked much higher than Danny Gray was.
Tank Dell was 69.
Yeah. And Danny was like 150 or something.
Tank Dell is 5'8", 165. So, in fairness, no matter how good he is, a guy 5'8", 165, like it is hard to take that player pretty high. 69, I would say, for that size. But then once it's in the league, like, well, can the guy fucking play? Because T.Y. Hilton was another guy, small guy. You get to the NFL, you're like, holy shit, this guy's good.
Right.
And I'd say it's the opposite with Danny. It was like, God, I remember watching the highlights of it. You're like, God, this guy's got a lot of talent. And then he gets to the NFL and it just doesn't work. Sometimes, but I think sometimes you know right away.
It definitely feels that way with him. Watching him practice also.
Because he feels a little bit, it's different. I mean, you watch more Pettis than me, but I watch a decent amount of Pettis. It has Pettis feel to it. Like, it's like, this is just not going to work. Yeah, great. So Dell was pick 69. He was pick 105. I mean, you're talking 35 picks. That's a big swing. That's a round. So, I mean, you could argue, I bet the Texans would say, we had a second round grade on the guy. We just drafted the first pick in the third round or whatever, second pick in the third round. That's essentially
how many receivers went ahead of him? Do you have that? Do you have the receiver group? I can find it here. Because I think sometimes a guy goes at the end of the second round, beginning of the third round, just because there's like 8 receivers, and that's a lot of receivers get drafted.
Well, slash other positions, right?
Well, yeah. Well, I know. I'm just saying, like, there's like going back to the Aiyuk draft. It feels like there are just a ton of receivers every year.
So he was like I mean, a lot of receivers. So Jackson Smith, first guy, the TCU kid who sucks, Zay Flowers, Addison. I mean, I think Jordan Addison's pretty good. Jonathan Mingo at Carolina, that can't be going well. Jaden Reed, Packers, I kind of like that guy. Rashawn Wright, Rashay Rice, I think is how you say it. SMU Chiefs, that guy's pretty good.
Yeah, how'd you say Rashay? Yeah, he looked good the other night.
Yeah, he made a sweet touchdown.
Oh, that's right. That's the guy that went in the second round.
Marvin Mims, who's pretty talented, Oklahoma. Sean Payton drafted, and then he went.
So that's 8. He was the 9th receiver. That's a lot of receivers. This is like a lot of receivers.
Yeah.
You can be really good and go at the end of the second round or the beginning of the third round. There's a lot of dudes.
I would say, for example, like would the 49ers draft a guy 5'8", 165 at wide receiver? Feels like they would not be inclined.
Not that high.
But I just have heard,
you're right. Not at all.
I don't think it's not really. I don't think Kyle likes that player. Like I feel like he would lean.
It's like Stoops kid.
Yeah, he's getting drafted by one of those guys. I would bet. I'd bet $1,000 that one of Shanahan's minions, so that includes McDaniel, LaFleur, Kyle, Sean, that group.
Slowick,
I would. Him too. Yep, he counts. Casario, wherever Bill ends up, as well as Andy Reid. I think he is a lock to go in that group.
Yep.
I mean, breaking down the huddles at rookie minicamp, they're like, I fucking love this guy.
How about Pete Waldron, Pete Carroll?
It's not really. I mean, Pete. Look at he was a little more Ray Baluga to him than little overachiever. He's not a big overachiever guy.
How about
you either are overachiever guy that it means something to you or not? I would say O'Connell. Look, Jordan Addison. I don't know. O'Connell's 6'5". I don't.
How about
I feel like the 49ers 100% would draft him, don't you? Like they would feel good. I don't know what round he's viewed at, but like they would feel good about overdrafting him because they want him on their team.
Yeah, I mean,
assuming he can
you have to, like Ronnie Bell kind of already is that in theory guy will be. They need like a Jennings replacement. Well, they need an Aiyuk replacement. I heard Kawakami. I was listening to his podcast with Barrows, 49ers plus minus. And like Barrows sounded pretty adamant, Tim too, that the relationship between Brock and Aiyuk has gotten pretty special and that you don't break that up when you find it. That Barrows was kind of like, it made me think like this. Barrows just kind of know that they're just not letting Brandon go, that him and Purdy are just at the beginning of something special. And you keep that when you find it. And his point too was like, look how long it took for them. They drafted this guy. They developed this guy. Look what he finally became. I think him or Tim, one of them said, like, Kyle doesn't want to go develop another receiver for 4 more years again for Brock. It does make sense. Like, if you're all in on Brock, how do you...
Could you trade for Britton Covey?
Britton only returns. Like, they never let him play offense.
Well, rightfully so. I mean, look at who they're rolling out.
Yeah.
In fairness, I
keep him around though.
Make fun of him. I saw a headline that like I think Sirianni was banging the drum why he should be a Pro Bowl return man.
Smith once was.
You get a guy like that. If I told you that like 3 of their coaches on the Eagles staff, Covey's like their favorite player.
He's probably. I mean, he's 28. So,
but I bet he's at the office crazy hours. Like what? Yeah. What do you study? Punt return.
He feels more dangerous back there than Trent Irwin does for the Bengals.
I haven't watched enough of Stoops kid. I don't know if Stoops kid is a returner too. Feels like Oklahoma probably has some sweet returner.
Yeah, I don't know that he's a returner. Maybe I don't know.
He is good though. Like he's a legitimate starter on a good offense. I mean, they were like the 5th offense.
I watched him. I watched him the other day catching balls over the middle. I feel like you mentioned Britton Covey. Not that we're going like special teams breakdown today, but Niners have been a little susceptible on the return team.
If Britton Covey returns one against the 49ers, but he did that against like Mario Cristobal. Kyle Shanahan.
He did it against that. Yeah. Didn't he do it against? He did it in the Rose Bowl. He did it to Penn State, I think, didn't he?
Yeah, because they were kind of out of it, and he kind of just gave them a little life in that game.
Yeah.
Am I remembering correctly? He put like a nail in Mario's coffin in one of the games.
Yes, that sounds correct. Yep.
And it might have been in Vegas.
I think it was
last year.
back-to-back week. Like, it was back-to-back games he did. He did it in the Pac-12 title game and the Rose Bowl, maybe? That sound right?
How many years Mario been gone now? 2. So it would have been 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Who did they play last year? Do you remember in the Pac-12 champion? Who did Utah?
SC?
Utah. Oh yeah. But he wasn't on the team last year.
He wasn't on that team, yeah. It was Ohio State he did it against.
His last year was Mario's last year when they played him twice and beat him twice.
He did it against Ohio State, not Penn State. Oh, yeah, he wouldn't have been on the team last year. Good point. That was Penn State.
It was Ohio State.
Yeah, Ohio State.
That he would have played against. Did they get killed in that game?
They came back in that game, but still lost, I think.
Oh, yeah, that was the game that they played the wide receiver at corner against like Marvin Harrison and Jackson Smith.
Siani Vaki. Yeah.
It was like, yeah.
No, it wasn't Vaki. Vaki was this year. But yeah.
It wasn't fair.
Because one of them didn't play, right? Jackson Smith and Jigma. One of them didn't. No, it wasn't. Who was the other guy? Who was?
It was Jackson. Marvin Harrison was like, it was his breakout game. Like,
it was his
holy
freshman year.
Shit, this 18-year-old. This is Marvin's kid. Drake Stoops.
Mekhi Bernard. That's who went running back to corner that day.
Drake Stoops has 78 catches and 10 touchdowns this year.
Oh,
breakout season for the young man. He's been in college since 18. So he's been there 18, 19, 20, 21, 20. This is 6th year. So he's no wonder he loves Oklahoma. He's fucking been there for 30 years.
Yeah.
Well, matter of fact, it's ready. He's coming.
I don't know. I feel like he might get overdrafted. Kyle won't want him that high.
No, I could see Andy liking him. I mean, one of the guys Andy's throwing to that Watson guy, 84, University of Penn. That's where the guy's from. Now he's 20. No, he's like 27. Been in the league a while. Actually, I Googled it the other day. I'm like, who is this guy? He ran like a 4.4. I mean, he's not like some little slow white guy. I mean, he's actually, I think, pretty talented.
Yeah.
But that's like who they're rolling out there right now. They're obviously limited.
I do think we can talk about this later, but I'm in the mode right now where whoever wins this Niner Eagle game, to me, it's just, I mean, to me, this is not some hot take, is the Super Bowl favorite. Like, I think the NFC's winning the Super Bowl this year.
Well, they're definitely going to be favored in the Super Bowl, I would say. Unless, like, the Ravens win out and beat the Niners.
Mm-hmm.
But even if they were, it'd be like a 1-point favorite. Like, there's a chance the Niners or the Eagles going in the Super Bowl is like a 4 or 5 point favorite, right?
Well, they would have, especially if you have beaten the other one in the NFC Championship game.
If one of these two teams beats the other twice and just kind of rolls from here on in,
yeah.
I don't know if I'd go a touchdown, assuming it's like Lamar or Patrick.
Well,
but it's definitely going to be more than 3.
If the Niners beat the Eagles and the Ravens and are the 1 seed, and then beat the Eagles again, yeah, I don't know it.
Well, if the Niners were to get the 1 seed, that would mean the Eagles fall apart a little bit. Yeah, they might be a 7-point favorite in the game. And does every sharp then hammer the Chiefs? Be a lot of points.
In Vegas, Chiefs fans are used to buying a lot of tickets there.
It's true. They know exactly where they want to sit. They know the sightlines.
I got tickets to I had to get forwarded the tickets to the Pac-12 Championship game Friday, and they come from like the Raiders ticket office. So I screenshotted it and posted and said, "You people think I'm being sarcastic. You think Raider guy's kidding around? He's not kidding around. It doesn't say Pac-12 Championship anywhere. It just says Raiders ticket office." Looks like
they sell a lot of those to people they don't know.
They promised out of town tourism dollars, and they got it.
Yeah, it worked.
Got hotel rooms.
It worked. It's
Casinos
working.
are not complaining. Casinos do not want to be 100% locals coming to those games.
No, I don't. I would say they want 100% out of towners, right?
Right.
Most people going to a game, if you're going to a football game, the championship game is a little unique, but like just a legitimately a normal NFL weekend, right? That you build into your schedule 5 months in advance. Like you're probably not coming Sunday morning. Hell, you might take like Friday. You might go like Thursday to.
Yeah,
You probably
Thursday
gotta say
night.
Sunday. You're not leaving Sunday night, are you?
Well, I mean, you can go Friday morning. You get Friday night and Saturday night. That's plenty of Vegas, right?
But if you live around, some of these people, if you don't live around there, you know, you don't go very often. It's so easy for us to go. Like if you're in Kansas City, what if you go to Vegas like once every 5 years? Even if you're not a big like partier, there's a million things to do. My
Right.
question is, do you go home on Sunday night?
I mean, the flight's definitely cheaper on Monday, but it's going to be, you got to take a day off of work.
Yeah. It's true. Working man. Got to get back.
I mean, you could I guess all these people could just do their podcasts from the hotel rooms.
Yeah, that's true. They got better Wi-Fi these days.
All right. On that note, we'll be back Wednesday, big week. So we're hammering pods and YouTubes this week, everybody. We'll talk to you soon. Later.